our next speaker. He's going to talk about leading the global law enforcement response to cybercrime, which to me sounds like a brilliant topic to discuss. He is an executive director of police services at the INTERPOL. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Stefan Kavanagh.
Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, I'm hugely grateful for the opportunity to speak at this Cyber Week. Particularly grateful to the authorities, the Israeli government, that the remarkable response has allowed us to get together here, face to face, for the first time, certainly for me, in a new role. With this in mind, I want to also thank the authorities here and everyone at Tel Aviv University, not just for holding the event, but for allowing Interpol to be part of what takes place. In my role as Executive Director of Police Services at Interpol, I need to let you down gently. Apologies. We do not have Tom Cruise on the roof of the building with a helicopter. We have a relatively small budget, but it is my responsibility to oversee the 3 global crime programs. That's everything to do with fighting terrorism globally, looking at the emerging and organized crime, including paedophilia, as well as cybercrime. And when I'm not doing that, I'm responsible for supporting the teams who look at the analysis that needs to take place and the global outreach. I don't want to repeat too long. We've heard that cybercrime is a phenomenon without borders. It is a global threat that we've heard affects 4.5 billion people online every single day. What we're seeing is that the challenges that we are seeing in the digital arena have been accelerating throughout the pandemic. And whether that's predators targeting children online, or suddenly seeing the virtual world changing in terms of the opportunities being taken for vulnerabilities within systems which we've heard about just now. We're seeing that criminals are exploiting every opportunity throughout supply chains, throughout communities, throughout businesses. What we are also seeing is the severity of those criminal activities are escalating, as well as the real impact on people within communities. Various types of cybercrime have been increasing, whether that's ransomware, whether it's the data breaches we've heard so much about. It's the increasing complexity about business email compromise and online scams that we've heard something about in relation to medical products linked to the COVID virus. These are but to name a few. What we are able to do from a global perspective is see a set of perspectives that no one else can. We can see how certain activities hit certain regions or sectors quickly. We can see that complex frauds will hit victims in Europe at one point, with proceeds being routed as far away as West Africa and Southeast Asia within minutes and certainly within hours. In particular, ransomware has been one of the most impactful crimes. It's exploded, as we've heard over the last 2 days. Criminals not just targeting businesses, but being happy, as we've heard from Saif, to target critical national infrastructure, to look at education and including healthcare, which I will talk to you briefly about, but also food suppliers, oil pipelines, amidst the carnage of a pandemic. We've heard consistently throughout these 2 days, these crimes have no limits, they have no boundaries, and they have no consideration about the impact that they have. According to one of our private partners, Palo Alto Networks, and we heard this morning from the Prime Minister, the average ransomware payment has increased by 171% in 1 year. We've seen the devastating impact that it has on people's lives, on their businesses, and on national economies. As Saif has said, this is not just a local problem, a national problem. It is truly a global issue for us to consider. But what we also see from a law enforcement perspective is other challenges going on in supporting the rollout of COVID vaccines, of maintaining sanitary measures across the world, and not being able to adapt at the pace it needs to with some of the challenges we're talking about over these 2 days. Policing's role is the same online as it is offline. We are meant to try and protect lives and protect property. But the key thing is, for our first time in policing history, we are no longer the first responders, and we need to get used to that. The first responders, as we've heard brilliantly from the speakers, are the private sector, are the tech industries, are the service providers, or the national computer emergency response teams. We need to get used to the fact we need to save the patient, we need to save the crime in action, and understand that we work alongside these valued partners in a fundamentally different way. In accordance with this, what we also face the challenge of is a short-term outlook from some law enforcement. If the crime is not impacting within their geographical region, then why get involved? And whether this is a child being abused or whether it's a cyber attack being escalated from your geographical region, we need to make sure that law enforcement engage consistently to help private partners and other agencies disrupt these methods, locate the individuals involved, and if possible, seize back some of those illicit funds. We've heard from Miguel this morning, there's a significant problem of underreporting, which makes it incredibly difficult for any one sector to properly understand, if they are looking backwards on crime types based in the 20th century, what the picture of these threats might be. After 20 months in my role in a global position, what is increasingly clear to me is that bilateral arrangements will no longer cover everything that is required. What is exacerbating the situation is the gaps that exist within capabilities and the vision of law enforcement to work more effectively. They continue to focus on locally based priorities, and Interpol needs to support them in looking beyond those borders. Such gaps become the weakest link for law enforcement to support you, and it becomes a key enabler of criminal opportunities within the situation that we face. To overcome these challenges and close these gaps, from a law enforcement perspective, we need humility. We need to be honest. We need the courage to be able to change, and change in partnership is never easy. We need to jointly identify and acknowledge our weaknesses and consider the perspective of others as we try to improve these processes. The Prime Minister this morning described cybersecurity as a team sport. We need to remember that in any team, we need to support the weakest member of that team if we are to become stronger as a common endeavour. Interpol is here to help close those gaps. It's here to be honest about where we need to be stronger, and it's here to build sustainable partnerships. Interpol's global reach across 194 countries in a neutral way has been perfectly developed for these global challenges today. We are here, and our vision is to connect for police to police connect for a safer world. And I have heard that expression from private partners on numerous occasions in the last 2 days. We do provide a communications network. We provide the notice systems that allow us to arrest and disrupt. And we provide an immense amount across 19 databases, all aimed at enhancing and improving policing cooperation. We've recently organised a conference where we had over 400 attendees within 2 weeks to look at the challenge around the ransomware issues that are going on. And this wasn't just law enforcement, it was private partners and certs. And we talked about trust and the imminent threats that we all face. What was clear to all of us in this conference, and has been clear in these last 2 days, ransomware and cybercrime more widely have become too large a threat for any one entity, one sector, or one set of agreements to deal with. And Interpol needs to be clearer on how it becomes part of those solutions. We had enormous respect for the Irish health sector. Saif just articulated brilliantly how these health sectors are being targeted. And recently, it wasn't just the financial loss and the disruption to service. They talked about the catastrophic effect on the patients, on doctors' ability to access data for mothers, for fathers, for children who needed treatment quickly. These are real crimes with real victims. So again, we need to move quickly as a team, making collective and coordinated efforts. Otherwise, we will not see this tide turn. Let's not talk about winning battles or wars, because every time we adapt together, we will see the criminals adapt just as well. We had drew 4 recommendations from our ransomware conference to look more effectively about how law enforcement engages in prevention, the pre-exploit disruption that needs to take place through more evolved ecosystems, how to deal more maturely with the in-event emergency response, and of course, the post-attack recovery. What is clear to me, listening more throughout these few days and in my role across the crime responsibilities of Interpol, we are all equally important in this endeavour. It is time when a strong global law enforcement leadership is required with humility to understand it might no longer lead in certain areas. We need to support the responses to cybercrime through a more effective and growing global cybercrime programme. Our teams based in Singapore look at cybercrime threat response, cybercrime operations, and developing cyber strategy capabilities and partnerships. We're trying to develop more secure platforms which allow countries and partners to get involved in a secure way in which they know they can share their insights, their data, and their analytics. We're clear. Secure, sustainable global platforms for connecting policing and partners will be a small part, but an important part of our solution. The global ecosystem of cybersecurity has grown by necessity so far. It has grown naturally or organically, but we now need to understand where law enforcement sits, and law enforcement understand that it's a paradigm shift for us. In closing, colleagues, we know that combating cybercrime in every element will be a marathon. It is not a sprint. In policing, we need to harness the insights of you, the cybersecurity industry, and partners. We understand the computer emergency response teams and their needs and insights, and the other organisations that make up the response, if we are to disrupt cybercriminals in a sustainable and effective way. Looking forward, as we seek to recover from the pandemic, we also need to identify and deal with the gaps amongst our arrangements. We need to challenge ourselves to understand where the silos are holding us back and our conventional practices are no longer fit for the digital age. Optimising the quality of our recovery at this time will lead to greater resilience, agility, and effectiveness. To quote Henry Ford, coming together is a beginning, keeping together is a process, but working together is a success. Interpol will work together with you, and I wish all of us a success in reducing the global impact of cybercrime and protecting the real people in real communities from the harms that are being wreaked. Thank you very much indeed.